So, I'm sure you're wondering, did dopamine detoxing work for me? If you don't want to watch the rest of the video, I'll just tell you now. Kind of. I know that wasn't the answer you were hoping for, but let me explain. I'm on summer break right now with all the time in the world, so I gave it a shot. For 3 days, I tried it. I thought, hey, I want to be happier, more productive, more self aware. This sounds great. And I kind of made up my own rules, so let me tell you about them. Now, when I said rules, I actually meant rule, because there was only one. I can't do anything overstimulating. This meant no music, no video games, no TV, no overly processed or sugary foods, and no social media. Now, the goal of this was not to make my life miserable. If it was, realistically, I'd probably just play Overwatch all day. So here's what I actually could do. I could still move around. I could continue my training. Physical activity is, of course, allowed. Number two, I could keep building my other habits. And right now I'm working on reading more frequently. Number three, I can still use my phone, just not for anything against the rules. Number four, I still have to go to work. I work as a parking lot attendant, so you really don't have to worry about my job being overstimulating. Number five, I can still use YouTube, but not for anything against the rules. And number six, I can keep working on creative projects. So most of that ended up being working on video scripts. If you're curious about what my day-to-day life looked like during this, it pretty much boiled down to the exact same routine. So first I'd wake up, then I'd go for a walk, then I'd eat, then I'd work, then I'd work out, then I'd eat again, then I'd go to actual work, and then I'd come home and eat, and then I'd sleep. That was pretty much it. So, what happened after these 3 days was my brain set back to factory default settings. Was 3 days even enough to do anything? Here are my takeaways. My first takeaway is that detoxing is stupid. A detox implies that you were just going to go back to exactly what you were trying to avoid, and that makes no sense. It doesn't have the same fun alliteration, but I think dopamine shift is a much better term. Instead of basically just taking a break from overstimulation, you're learning to shift your lifestyle to better align with what provides good dopamine over cheap dopamine. My second takeaway is that time doing nothing is not always wasted time. I used to think that being productive meant you always had to be doing something. You always had to be making the most out of your time. Because if you weren't, how could you possibly be productive? I used to force myself to read things, learn about random things, just so I could have more productive time. I'd look at the clock and I'd see an hour had gone by, and I'd give myself a little pat on the back, hey, good job being productive. And I'd literally extend tasks so that they would take longer. So I felt like I was being productive for longer. Now, I believe almost the polar opposite. I think being productive is actually being able to end up with time left over, so you have that spare time. And with this dopamine detox, I had a lot of time left over. Anyway, so normally I'd spend this time doing something I like. Usually I'd play video games, I'd watch YouTube, or sometimes I'd watch TV. But obviously I couldn't do that. So during my dinner break and before work, I had on a lot of time. And I spent most of that time just sitting there, doing nothing but sitting there. So naturally, when you're bored, your brain starts to think, right? And the way I get these thoughts, I get them in this pattern. At first, I just get a ton of random thoughts, stupid things I'd be thinking about. My favorite one was, why do people call people with small legs? Why do they say they have chicken legs when in reality they should be saying they have chicken feet legs? Because the leg of the chicken is not actually the small part, it's their feet. Anyway, once I stopped thinking about farm animals, you'd get to stage 2, which was just the no man's land of boredom. It was just nothing. I just sat there for an unknown amount of time before I finally got to the third stage, which was the internal thoughts. I reached those deepest level of thoughts. Sometimes it was a clear statement. Sometimes it was a flash of an image. Sometimes it was an explanation, and they just came up seemingly randomly. Now, my old self would have found it really hard to grasp that literally by doing nothing, I was improving myself, but I just can't say it any other way. It actually happened. I was giving my brain time to think. I was giving it time to tell me, what do I want? What should I pursue? Why am I feeling this way? What should I do? And it was kind of magical. I've watched a lot of videos in the self-improvement space about, building X habit, starting Y business, why you need to read Z book. And some of them were really helpful, but for the majority of them, I didn't get anything from them. Maybe you can relate to this, but I'd keep trying and trying them, and then after a couple days, I just stop, and then I'd go and I'd pick up the new one. And you could say like, okay, you're just not disciplined enough. You weren't giving enough effort, and you're right, I wasn't. But the bigger problem I think is that these YouTube videos, they were trying to prescribe me a purpose that deep down I knew I just didn't want. Here's a similar example I came up with. So in the fitness realm, you have a lot of different people saying their type of exercise is the best, right? No, you need to do functional training. No, you need to strength train. No, you need to do hypertrophy training. No, you need to do calisthenics. No, you need to swim. You need to bike. You need to run. You need to do martial arts. It just goes on and on, right? But what is the actual best type of exercise? It's the kind that you want to do, the kind that fits your goals, and the one that you actually like. Now, of course, it's a lot easier to know whether you like lifting weights or not. It's a lot easier to find what type of exercise you like than it is to find your life's purpose. But I think the same underlying principle is there, right? You use others' input to help you decide what you should do, because you should be the one deciding what you want, because you're the only one who knows. And if you feel like you don't know, that's entirely okay, because I'm like that too. I don't know everything. And maybe like me, you just need to do some digging within yourself and you'll start to find answers. And let me clear something up. I'm definitely not saying you should just do what you think is fun or whatever you want whenever you want. But what I am saying is doing something, even if it's challenging, that you know deep down you want to pursue, is infinitely better than having to use discipline every single day to just keep pushing forward at something that someone else told you to do. And also, sitting there alone for like 4 hours over the span of 3 days, it did not give me the answers to life, but it really is something I plan on doing more in the future. My third takeaway is that moderation is the end goal. I think moderation is really the ideal state for most things in life, and the value of a detox comes in when moderation becomes difficult. So going cold turkey for however long can help you reintegrate it back into your life in a much healthier, more moderated way. And Dr. Anna Lemke, the author of Dopamine Nation, suggests quite a similar practice to this. She believes that by basically taking something out of your life for a whole month entirely, you'll be able to come back and you'll be able to manage it much better. You'll have much more control. I do really think this is a good idea. I have an experience from when I lost weight. Basically, all my sugar cravings have gone away. I can control myself quite easily around sugar. I mean, I certainly enjoy a treat from time to time. I'm not going to pretend like I never eat sugar or I don't like sugary foods. But, after going a straight year, without eating anything super sugary really, it was just so much easier to not eat them now, because realistically I look at it and I'm like, I don't need that. Or, I'd get just as much value, just as much enjoyment from eating an apple versus like a piece of cake. So I'm just like, why would I ever eat the piece of cake when the apple is right there? Now, this may be a bit of an unpopular opinion, but I think people on the self-improvement side of YouTube, they often overstate like the evil of instant gratification. I mean, don't get me wrong, instant gratification is actively ruining many, many people's lives. Most people cannot control themselves. And I genuinely think most people would be better off with complete restriction rather than trying to, cut down. But I'm here to tell you what I think, not what those other people think. And I think that instant gratification, it's still part of what makes life enjoyable. I can't sit here and pretend that, video games haven't been some of literally the best memories of my life. Like, I think when I'm 40, I'm going to look back on the day Super Smash Bros. Ultimate came out, because I was so happy. And I think it really boils down to whether you're honest enough in assessing yourself of whether something is making your life better or worse. And that's hard. That's very hard because one, it hurts your ego, and two, how do you know how much is too much? But I think if we as a society learn to better moderate instead of, demonize, maybe we'd be better off. So let's get back to the original question. Did detoxing work? Yeah, pretty well. Although, to be honest, this wasn't so different from my regular day-to-day life anyway. But, nonetheless, it's kind of amazing how much value I gained in 3 days alone. It's very corny, but I genuinely think this dopamine detox has changed my life. I don't think I'm ever going to go back and revert to my old habits of just being stimulated whenever I'm bored. I feel as though, I don't always need to be listening to music in the car or at the gym. I don't always need to be watching TV before bed. I don't always need to play video games. And I certainly enjoy them, but I'm much more aware that I can go without it. If you made it this far, I just want to say thank you for watching. And I want to know, have any of you guys ever tried a dopamine detox? Are your takeaways similar to mine? And also, this was my first real shot at an actually okay YouTube video. So if you have any feedback for me, please let me know. I'm trying to learn. Have a good day, you guys.